Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Blitz, your weekly Lorain County High School football show brought to you by First Federal Savings of Lorain. I'm your host, Marissa McNeese of the Chronicle, Telegram, and WEOL, joined as always by my partner behind the camera, Kristen Bauer, and we are here on a beautiful day at Ely Stadium in Elyria, where the Pioneer football program has gone through an incredibly difficult week with the death of assistant football coach Devon Bogard earlier this week. Before we recap Week 9 and look ahead to the final week of the regular season, let's jump right into it and look at how the Pioneers responded this past Friday against Amherst. Last week, Elyria assistant football coach Devon Bogard was killed in an accidental apartment fire. He played his high school career at Glenville and then went on to play at Ohio State. At 27 years old, he was the linebackers and weightlifting coach here at Elyria. And Coach Devlin Culliver said he meant so much to this program. He really related to the kids. Coach Culliver said the biggest thing when he got here was wanting to see the kids fill out their jerseys. He said the jerseys were loose. They weren't strong. They were just some skinny kids. And Coach Bogard came in, revamped the strength and conditioning program. And now Elyria is known for going out in the field, playing tough, physical. They're strong. And they fill out those jerseys as Coach Culliver wanted. He could not overstate the impact Coach Bogard had on this program. So the sudden loss of a beloved coach was a lot to handle for a group of high school kids. But they came out, hosted Amherst here at Ely Stadium, won 36-13. It was an emotional game. They honored Coach Bogard after gathering on the 30-yard line prior to the game and honoring Coach Bogard. The Pioneers went out and honored him the best way they knew how. Beating Amherst 36-13, they played a tough, physical game just as he has coached them to do. And now the Pioneers have a chance to finish 500 for the first time in a number of years. And while that seems insignificant for a program that has faced its fair share of struggles over the past few seasons, it's a big deal. And they get the chance to do it against a crosstown rival in Midview. Both teams, of course, now members of the SWC, and anytime they met in seasons past, it's always a great football game. Midview, of course, playing really well this second half of the season, sort of finding its identity and figuring out what works, especially after losing their starting quarterback in Week 1. And Elyria has lost some tough games this season, has struggled a little bit in the SWC, but have picked up big wins when they needed to, of course, this week to honor Coach Bogard, and the week before, a big win over North Ridgeville. So the final week of the regular season, we're in for a good game here with Elyria and Midview. But again, the Pioneers still dealing with the tragic loss of their assistant coach, Devon Bogard. All right, there's lots more Lorain County High School football to recap from Week 9 before we look ahead to, yes, the final week of the regular season. We made it, but I need to talk about the big game of the week from past Friday. I've been previewing it all season, a lot of hype surrounding this game, and it absolutely lived up to all of it. It was Keystone coming out on top over undefeated Columbia, 34-24, the Wildcats taking down the only undefeated team that was left in Lorain County. And it was a big game, a big statement for the Wildcats who, I hate to say this and throw myself under the bus, but just one person on the Chronicle Telegram picket line picked Keystone to win that game. For most of this season, the Wildcats struggling to get off to a hot start, which has forced them to play with their backs against the wall in a lot of these games. And I think a reason why Columbia is maybe a favorite in that game is because that's a team that has had the exact opposite problem. It's not a problem, of course. They have started strong. They have held teams to low scoring. They have shown their high-powered offense. They were averaging over 40 points a game at one point. And so Keystone had a lot to prove in that game, and they did it. They came out strong. They give up an early score, but they come back. They go into halftime with a lead. And then Columbia comes back at the half with a lot of momentum. They're driving down the field, but of course, as was the case with a lot of games this past week, a lightning delay. And then sure enough, it was Keystone who responded the best after that lightning delay. They come out, they take it to Keystone, and they come out with the win. Of course, who else other than Gideon Lampron putting the team on his back? Of course, that Wildcats team has a lot of playmakers, but Gideon, again, finishing with 22 carries for 103 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. He caught a touchdown as well. And really, Coach Jason Ward of Columbia had nothing but positive things to say. And he's not the only coach, but he said, that's one of the best players, if not the best, in Northeast Ohio on both sides of the ball. He's a great linebacker, obviously a very talented runner. And Keystone's lucky to have him on this team. Coach Don Griswold will say himself, we're blessed, we're lucky to have Gideon Lampron wearing a Keystone jersey. And so it was the Wildcats coming up 34-24 with the win over Columbia. They are now all alone in first place in the Lorain County League, controlling their own destiny with 1 game left in the regular season. I'm going to stick around the Lorain County League for this next recap, and we're going to talk about a couple teams we don't normally talk about that often on the Blitz, but it was Oberlin with a huge 52-22 win over a struggling Clearview. It's no secret the Clippers have faced their fair share of struggles this season. That's a really young team. They're still finding their footing. But Oberlin, a huge, huge win. And since the inception of the Lorain County League in 2019, this is the first conference win for Oberlin. And it wasn't easy. It was tough with weather, with rain, not a lot of depth on that team. That's a team with low numbers, and they grind out a big win over a conference opponent. That's a team starting to take some steps. They've got some playmakers. They're learning from experience, and it's showing with a big Lorain County League win this week. Another tight conference race that by this point in the season isn't usually the case is the Southwestern Conference. Avon, with a 55-7 win over Midview, secures its spot for at least a share of first place right now, but Olmsted Falls knocking on the door. They beat Avon Lake 35-3 this past week, so it's Avon and Olmsted Falls at the top of the Southwestern Conference, and both teams control their own destiny. Avon playing Amherst this week. Olmsted Falls, a tough test in Berea Mid-Park. At one point, it was Berea Mid-Park in a 3-way tie with those two teams at the top of the SWC. So the Bulldogs in for a tough game, but of course, both teams controlling their own destiny. They both win. They both share the title. For Avon, it'll be at least a share for the 6th season in a row. They've dominated the SWC, but now Olmsted Falls a chance to share some of that. So again, the Bulldogs facing Berea Mid-Park, a really tough game coming up this weekend. It'll be Avon hosting Amherst for a share of the Southwestern Conference title. There were a number of choices for this week's Team of the Week on the Blitz, but after some thought, I had to give it to the Keystone Wildcats, beating the only undefeated team left in Lorain County in the Columbia Raiders to now sit all alone in first place in the Lorain County League, a chance to win it again for the Wildcats, another team that controls its own destiny. They win this week, and they win the Lorain County League. It was a huge win, a huge, huge statement for the Wildcats in a game where, I'll be honest, I didn't pick them either. So a big statement for the Wildcats, and that is why we give them this week's Team of the Week. We have reached the final week of the regular season in Ohio high school football, but that doesn't mean the coverage stops. We've got a ton coming up for you this week, a lot of good games coming up before some of our teams continue on into the postseason. So you'll want to be picking up your copies of the Chronicle Telegram every day, but of course on Fridays where you can find our previews, our staff picket lines, and then on Saturday, the Blitz, where there is no better high school football coverage around. On WEOL this week, on Stream 1 and on WEOL.com, you can hear Wellington taking on Black River, and another Lorain County League game on Stream 2 on WEOL.com is Columbia traveling to Firelands. It will not be an easy game for the Raiders, who are looking to bounce back after that tough loss against Keystone. And on Stream 3 for our Medina County matchup this week, it is Rocky River facing Buckeye for the Great Lakes Conference Championship. You can find all of that on WEOL, on WEOL.com. And of course, in the meantime, make sure you're going to ChronicleT.com, following us all on Twitter for all of your updates. And until then, we will see you next week when we recap the final week of the regular season on the Blitz.